Everyone, welcome back again to another sewing tutorial on Jowins channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're an existing subscriber, thank you so much for your likes, comment, engagement, for the support. I don't take it for granted. And if you're yet to subscribe, please hit on the subscribe button and also on the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you find value for this video, please don't forget to hit on the like button. Thank you so much. So guys, let's get right into the tutorial. Okay guys, for this style illustration I'll be working with a silk crepe. So I have a silk crepe for the tutorial. If you're going to be doing a short gown, 2.5 yards of silk crepe, it's okay, but for the longer gown, 3 yards it will be suitable. Okay, so I'll go ahead and place my fabric on fold like you're creating a 180-degree flare. Then I'll go ahead and take your measurement. So this particular fold or this particular method, it's okay and fine if you're working with a short gown. You can go ahead and draft your pattern using this method. Okay, so still the same formula for the longer one, but just a different folding. Then for the longer method, for the longer gown, I'm going to be placing my fabric on fold. I have it on fold as it is on my table. Then I'll go ahead and create a triangular fold like this. Okay, so just watch the fabric pattern on my work table and then go ahead and place your fabric like so. If you want the triangular fold to be elaborate, you can extend your triangle as much as you want depending on the available fabric you have. Okay, so this 2.5 yard wasn't really enough for me for the longer gown, but I just had to make do with it because I made mention that for a longer gown you have to work with 3 yards at most, but what I have on my table is 2.5 yards, so I needed to manage it. Okay, so for the front pattern I'm going to be using this fabric to illustrate simply because I did a little bit of a modification for this front pattern and I want you guys to actually do the right thing. Okay, so I'm going to use my measuring tape to take place my to get my bust measurement on the fabric plus 2.5 or 2 inch ease allowance. Okay, so that particular point was about 12 inches. Then I came down by 2.5 inches for the bust line. So I'll go ahead and draw my bust line 2.5 inches below my chest line. And don't forget that I said that on the chest line your bust line should be there plus at least 2.5 ease allowance on the chest line. Then from that point I'll go ahead and establish my shoulder line either from the bust or from the chest. I'll go ahead and draft my shoulder line. Then from there I'm going to be marking my shoulder measurements plus 1 inch seam allowance for the sleeve because I'll be using a sleeve. If you're not using a sleeve, there'll be no need for this 1 inch seam allowance. Then for the shoulder slope, I'll be coming down by 1 inch to draft my shoulder slope. For my armhole divided by 2, I'll go ahead and mark it plus 1 inch. Okay, so don't forget to add 1 extra inch for your sleeve because we're doing a tulip sleeve and the sleeve has a lot of ease around the armhole. That was the mistake I did for my own pattern. I didn't add ease allowance for my round sleeve. So if you notice that my sleeve was a bit fitted, so if you want your sleeve to be free, go ahead and add 1 inch to your sleeve opening. Okay, so for the neck width and the neck depth I'm working with 4.5 inches for both the neck width and the neck depth. Then I'll go ahead and draft my neck curve, that's the neckline. Then your armhole, the midpoint of your armhole, then you go ahead and draft your armhole. Okay, you've already established your the quarter of your bust plus 2 inch ease allowance on the chest line, so that's perfectly fine. So don't forget to also add your shoulder seam. You remember that you're drafting on your fabric and not on a pattern paper, so your shoulder seam is so important so that I don't eat into your armhole. Okay, then from that point you go ahead and take your dress measurement. So for this particular pattern I'm just assuming because this is not the fabric I'm working with, so I'm just showing you guys what to do and how to go about taking your measurement either from the shoulder line or from the bust line. You just keep moving your tape and then gradually you take your measurement. So I've already established the pattern on the other fabric, so this is the main fabric I'm working with. I'll just go ahead and cut out the pattern we illustrated on the previous fabric, which is more like the brown doll face fabric. Okay, so don't forget to also draft your neckline on the same front pattern. So I'm using my neckline, which is about 1.5 inches, to cut out on this fabric. I didn't draft my back neckline on the other brown fabric, but on this particular one, I had my back neckline. So I had to cut out, excuse me, my back neckline first. After doing that, I'll go ahead and detach one of the pattern to enable me cut on the front fabric, the front neckline. Okay, so you know that we're cutting the back and the front at the same time. So ensure that you cut out first on your back pattern, which is your back neckline, before cutting out on your front neckline. So that is it for the pattern drafting for the dress. So we'll go ahead and proceed for the sewing tutorial. So guys, the sewing tutorial will include the sleeve and the inseam finishing for the dress. So I urge you guys to please watch the video to the end so that you get all you need to get a perfect gown. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is to cut out the lining for the front and the back. So this is the lining I used for the silk crepe. I went ahead to place it on a bias fold, as you can see. Then I'll go ahead and also, this is the front part of it, the front pattern. As you can see, I placed it on fold, and then I went ahead to secure it with my pin. So guys, for this tutorial, I'll try as much as possible not to be too fast. In my previous tutorials, I noticed that I'm a bit fast, so it's difficult for me to at least explain in detail so that beginners can understand. So this particular tutorial, I just want to give this a trial and see how it goes, taking my time to explain in details so that people can follow along perfectly. A beginner can understand the tutorial and know the detailed way to get these things done. Okay, so after placing it on fold, as you can see, I secured it with my pin neatly, and then I went ahead to use my scissors to trim out the pattern. I'm not going to be cutting the complete length of this front pattern. I'm just going to be doing a particular measurement. So I'll cut it a bit downwards, about 23 inches from the shoulder, between 22 to 23 inches, which is a little bit below my waistline. I'll go ahead and cut out the facing or the lining for the front pattern. Okay, so I'm cutting out the front pattern, which is about 22 to 23 inches. As you can see, I'll simply go ahead and detach it. Then I'll cut out the back pattern afterwards. Okay, so ensure that you take your time to do these things so that you know your work will be well organized, your work table should be organized, and your fabric as well should be well organized. Okay, so I'll go ahead and also lay my back pattern with the lining. You can see the lining, the same lining for the front. I'll be laying it down properly, and then I'll go ahead and cut out the back pattern. So with the same measurements, which is about 22 to 23 inches, I'll use my chalk to highlight it. Okay, just highlight it slightly on the lining and then secure with a pin. Then go ahead and cut it out. Cut out the neckline. Ensure that your center front is placed on the curved angle of the lining. Okay, place it directly on it, secure with a pin, and go ahead and cut it out. It's very easy. So guys, the next thing to do is to cut out the keyhole. After drafting the lining, I'll go ahead and draft the keyhole for the front pattern. So this is the front pattern on my work table. As you can see, I'm trying to secure the center front properly. So from the neckline, I'll come down by 4 inches, and then from that 4 inches, I'll come down by 4 inches as well. Okay, so from that point, I'll go in by 1/4 inch. The keyhole is 1/2 inch, so 1/4 inch on a spread is 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm trying as much as possible to secure that area, and then I'll go ahead and use my scissors and cut it out neatly. Okay, so if you're not careful, you go beyond 1/4 inch, but if you follow this process of securing with a pin, you'll get it right. So I'll go ahead and take the back pattern. This is the back pattern. So this is the sewing machine. and this is the back pattern. I'm trying to turn the neckline of the back pattern. Okay, so at this point I'll be working with my pins as well. My pins is always very close to me. It's very handy. Okay, you work with your pins all the time if you're a beginner. So I'll use my pin and then I'll go ahead and stitch half an inch round the neckline. So this is the back pattern. Okay, this is not the front. The front has a keyhole, but the back pattern doesn't have any keyhole. Okay, so I'm trying to close up the neckline first. So I'm stitching by half an inch. After stitching, I'll go ahead and notch it. So just notch it so that you relax the seam. Notch it a little bit. You have to be very careful so that you don't cut through your seam or the thread. Then I'll go ahead and turn it. Okay, you can top stitch, or for me what I did here was to relax it with my steam iron with the help of a hemming gum. Okay, so that hemming gum will help it to relax very well. Ensure that your hemming gum doesn't get into your shoulder area. Okay, just around the neckline so that it relax perfectly, because we're not done with the tutorial. So guys, this is the front neckline. This is the front pattern I meant to say. So I'm going to be turning the front pattern. First and foremost, I'm going to be turning around the keyhole area. This is the major focus for the front pattern. Okay, so I'll turn the keyhole area and not the neckline. Okay, so I secure that area with my pin, and then I'm going to be stitching by 1/4 of an inch, not half an inch, because if you stitch it by half an inch, you might create a wider opening than you anticipated. Okay, so I'm trying to highlight this thing so that we get it right. Okay, I hope I'm making sense. So I'm going to be stitching it by 1/4 of an inch, very close to the keyhole. Just let your seam be a bit closer to the opening that you have. After stitching it round, you go ahead and notch it. Just notch it gradually. At this point, you have to be very careful. I actually worked with my big scissors, but I was very careful at this point. If you have a smaller scissors, you can use your small scissors to notch. Okay, so just be careful while notching so that you don't cut through your seam and altering your dress at the same time. So after notching properly, you have to notch properly, especially the center area. After notching, I'll go ahead and turn the lining through the same key opening, that's the keyhole. Turn it to the right side. After turning it, you give it a very good press. So at this point, it wasn't really relaxed, so I had to really notch it again so that it can relax very well. You see me, I'll flip it back to the wrong side, and then I'll give it a proper notch. This notching helps your lining to relax. Either you notch and then top stitch, they help your lining to relax properly. So after notching it, I'll turn it back to the right side, and then I'll give it a good press. And at this point, after ironing, I still used my hemming gum around that area to relax it so that it will be very flat. Okay, so guys, this is the back pattern. You can see I've given it a good press, and you can see how flat it is after using my hemming gum to relax it, giving it that very neat touch around the neckline. Okay, so this is it for the back, and then this is the front. I'm done ironing the front and top stitching the neckline. You know what, attaching a sleeve, so you go ahead and top stitch the neckline and your armhole. So the next thing to do is to turn the neckline of my front pattern. This is a strip. I'll be using a bias strip for the neckline, and the strip is about 1.5 inch. So I'll place this strip, which I got from the fabric, from the silk crepe. I'll go ahead and stitch it by half an inch. From the I'm stitching the wrong side, which is the back pattern. This is the front pattern, so I'm stitching the back side, and then I'll top stitch on the right side. I hope I'm making sense. So after stitching, you go ahead and notch, and after notching, you flip and then you stitch. Okay, so just follow me. I'm sure you understand what I'm doing. So I'm done stitching on the wrong side, so I'm going to be top stitching. It's very important that you top stitch on the right side so that your seam the seam finishing on the neckline will be very neat. If you top stitch on the wrong side, you may not really know what the front part of the neckline will look like. But if you stitch from the back and top stitch against the right side, the seam finishing will be very neat, because at this point you're monitoring the stitch, ensuring that it's moving as you want, the lines are moving as you want. You'll be very careful at this point. I don't know if you're used to working with buyers. I'm sure you understand the point I'm trying to make. If you're a beginner, if you do it 1 or 2 times, you'll get this point. Okay, so at this point I'm taking my time so that I won't have any slanty lines around the neckline of the bias. So I'll go ahead and stitch it carefully until I get to the end, and then after stitching it, I'll use my steam iron to give it a very good press, so that it won't be looking all rough and somehow. Okay, so this is it. I'll trim out the threads, and if there's any excess strip, you go ahead and trim it out along the shoulder area, and then give it a good press. So you can see what the finishing of the neckline looks like. I'm here to give it a good press. Okay, so use your steam iron and give it a good press. So after ironing, you go ahead and close the shoulder. So I'll be using the lining of the back pattern to close up the shoulder. So right sides facing each other, you take the lining for the back, just flip it in front, and then you stitch. Okay, so I'll do this repeatedly so that you understand. If you haven't done this, you understand the point I'm trying to make. So right sides facing each other, you take the line, just one lining, flip it to one side, you stitch, and then release the dress back. So it creates this neat inseam finishing for the shoulder. You won't see any shoulder seam. So this is it. I'm done, and I've given it a very good press. So this is it, the neckline and the keyhole. Just when you're done with the joining of the seam, go ahead and give it a good press, and the outcome will be good to go. Okay. Okay guys, so after installing the lining and closing up the neckline, the next thing to do is to use your weaving machine to weave all through the hem, the side front, the back side, the back as well, just wherever required, including the sleeve. Okay, the sleeve, the armhole, just weave all through. So what I'll simply do next is to draft my sleeve. This is a simple basic sleeve. The cap's height 5.5 and the sleeve length 10 inches. You can do, it's not a standard. So I transferred it to the other side. From the center front, I'll be marking 8 inches. This is where I want the meeting point. That's the meeting point for the tulip. And then I will go ahead and use my pattern master to connect the two sides together. Okay, you can see that the center front is the connecting point. So after connecting it, I'll use my scissors to cut it out. Okay, I hope this sleeve is well understood. Okay, this, you come down by 8 inches on the center front and use that point, which is your meeting, your joining point, to connect the two sides like this. Okay, so this is the sleeve. I'm going to be cutting it out on the fabric. So I placed my fabric on fold. It's an overlap. So you cut out two. One is to overlap the other. So I'm going to place my fabric on fold. At this point, I didn't want to waste so much fabric. That's why I needed to refold it so that I won't have much waste. I need more of this fabric, okay, both for the main fabric and for the lining. Okay, and have in mind I'll be cutting for 2 sleeves, so I needed to minimize any form of waste. So you secure your pattern onto your fabric with your pin, and then you go ahead and cut it out. So this is the first fabric. Don't forget to notch the meeting point, which is that, yeah, notch that point. Is very important because it will guide you for your overlap. So after notching it, I'll open it up and show you guys what the overlap will look like. So this is the overlap. This is what the sleeve is going to look like, okay, when we're done. Okay, so that center front, that midpoint is the highlights for the sleeve that helps you to connect the both sides. So I'm going to be cutting out on the lining as well. This is one part. This is the sleeve, one of the sleeves I've already done. So I'm going to show you guys how I achieved it anyway. So this is the main fabric and this is the lining. I've cut out the main fabric and then I've cut out the lining. So I'll show you guys how I achieved the sleeve, the previous sleeve I showed you guys. Okay, I hope I'm making sense. So I'll take one like this and match the lining. I'm going to be turning the lining against the main fabric, right sides facing each other. So I'll go ahead and secure with my pin and stitch on the lower side, which is the hem area. So after stitching it, I was done stitching, I'll go ahead and notch it. Okay, after notching, this notching is very important, and all through my hemming gum was so handy and was so useful. I'll go ahead and open it up and then use my hemming gum. After giving it a good press, ensure that you relax the seam, open up the seam, give it a good press, and then use your hemming gum to relax it so that the lower part, that area, that seam area, will be very flat. Okay, don't take it up too much, just like 2 hemming gums will be fine, one around the same area and the midpoint area. So after I was done with the joining, with the ironing and then closing up the other side, you can see what it's looking like. I'll go ahead and create my overlap. Okay, so this is the overlap. Remember that the notching is very important. I made mention that the notching is very important. After placing it this way, I'll top stitch, and then I'll use my weaving machine to weave all through. This weaving is very important. Go ahead and weave, and then join your attach your sleeve to your dress. Okay, so I've attached the sleeve to the dress. Just take it to your sewing machine and attach it. I didn't want the tutorial to be too long, stitching all through. You know how to attach a sleeve, so you can either attach a sleeve with your closed dress or while the dress is still opening. Then at this point you create your ruche, so you just split around the neckline. You can see the pleating I'm doing there. You pleat into 2 and then use a band to secure the pleats, okay, around that neckline area. That's how you achieve those ripples around the neckline. And then I'll go ahead and close up the sides after I was done. So thank you so much, guys. If you find value for this tutorial, please don't forget to hit on the like button, and don't forget to subscribe and be a part of our sew community to explore. I also have other tutorials. You can go ahead and check it out. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you in my next tutorial. Have a nice day.